Earth. It's fairly large. A fair bit bigger than Kerbin, at least, which is the normal planet you launch your own Kerbal Space program. However, we're launching from Earth, which comes with plenty challenges, and as such, we're going to use the easiest launch site. Oh my god, my fucking phone. We're launching from Kourou as it is the easiest launch site due to being relatively equatorial. It's why the ASA, based in Europe, launches from it, even though it's in South America. Also because France owns it, but whatever. The first bit of space program management we do is selecting the early rocket development program at Breakneck and the suborbital research at Fast. I'd actually recommend doing that opposite, as I completed suborbital research well before early rocket development. And of course we select first launch and Carmen 9 contracts to complete as our first mission. And this is definitely the actual build footage of it being built. Definitely not just the build footage, or definitely not me taking apart reverse. Ignore the fact that that is most definitely not how you build things in Kerbal Space Program. Look, it's very difficult to build things first try in RP-1. Even a simple mission like this took me a while of testing. But nonetheless, we make the Sonic Test Vehicle Complex A. And after a bit of warping, after a bit of warp. I'm so bad. After a bit of warping, we ensure that all the engineers are assigned in there, and we prepare to build, oh my god, I need to write scripts for the 29th of March, 1951. Sonic 1 launched atop the first ever Sonic Test Vehicle 1, and the first launch of the space program is rolled onto the pad, only for the Veronic engine to instantly fail and have the thing come crashing down to the pad. I tried separating the little return launcher thingy just to see if I could salvage that part at least, but no, it was futile. These sounding rockets, however, are puny, and another SCV-1 is built in order to be launched on the 2nd of May as the Sonic 2 mission, and this one goes much better. It does kind of veer off to the side a bit more than I'd like, but it performs pretty flawlessly, and its engine cuts out, and we are able to time warp up a bit, and we pass the Carmen line, which becoming the first rocket to do so, and we jettison that little top return module thing, as it's more aerodynamic with the entire rocket. So we wanted to keep that until we reached our apoapsis, or for future missions where we can't actually exit the atmosphere, because that slight veering off meant that we only reached 100 kilometers. It didn't quite reach the 140 kilometers that are defined as space in real solar system. Once we exit the atmosphere, we can jettison it then, but in this case, we didn't quite get out of the atmosphere. We just reached 100 kilometers. And yes, I did design this so I wouldn't have to make something new when it came time to return from space, which means that it is a bit more powerful than your typical first sounding rockets. I'll try to talk about that in a different launch, because there are several launches of this thing in a relatively short amount of time, and I don't want to run out of things to talk about for each launch. But this one, as you can see, slowly parachuting down to the ocean. And it wasn't quite designed to land in the ocean, so as you can see, we kind of sink down to the bottom of that sea there, but it shouldn't be too much for a recovery team to get it back. And when I turn to the Space Center, we are met with this amazing newspaper clipping detailing the fact that we have indeed reached space. I promptly head into the R&D, and I kind of look around trying to see what I can research with the little bit of science I have. I ended up just getting whatever I could, whatever would end up helping me in a short amount of time. And although we did return from space, we didn't have the contract, so I accepted so we can do Sonic 3, which not only does the Veronic successfully ignite, but we in fact pass 140 kilometers. And yep, I probably shouldn't have detached that with physical time warp, so I couldn't get any shots of it kind of slowly fading away, but we do get some nice shots of the little capsule as it falls back down to Earth, and indeed, it does we're only coming from just a straight ballistic trajectory, so we don't experience any re-entry heating that is noticeable, and indeed, our parachute does deploy right now, and we come for a nice landing just outside of the KSC. This is why it wasn't rated for splashdown. This is how the flight was intended to go. It's just that one flight went the way it did. And yep, despite everything, we land right here. We gain more science, so more science is unlocked, so we can science some more science. And on the 28th of June in 1951, Sonic 4 launches with no particular contract it's attempted to fulfill, just because I had an extra STV-1 and I wanted to do something with it because this is one of the last launches of the STV-1, I do believe. Simply because we don't really have much of a use for it anymore, but it does perform flawlessly, and it lands in the grass outside the KSC, which we really do get to see just how tiny this little capsule is. I mean, look at how, much taller the grass is. Little, spike there, but, yeah, the grass is so much taller than that little thing. And I have no clue what that noise was, but, despite it only being about halfway through the year, that brings us to the end of the launches. As the rest of the year is spent constructing a bigger and better launch complex for a bigger and better sounding vehicle. We even need to prepare to hire engineers to stock this. But yeah, by the time we're done with warping through everything, it's 1952, and I'm doing these videos on a yearly basis in game, at least until I reach the 1960s, and I might do 2 videos per year. I might not. I most likely will, but I might not. But yeah, that brings us to the end of today's video. Bye, guys.